A look at your screen. This is the condition of one woman's car after she said two people, including one child, stole it and crashed it on November 30th. The car, as you can see, is completely totaled.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about a story that is another example of the parenting crisis that we have in this country. Okay, we live in unprecedented times where you have young teenagers that have become agents of chaos, and it seems like the agents of chaos, they're getting younger and younger and younger and younger. Okay, I mean, we're talking about 10, 11, 12-year-olds committing acts of violence and crime that you would expect from a full-grown adult. And that's exactly what this story is right here, as it involves a DoorDash driver, a woman out in Virginia who was DoorDashing, something that I used to do. I used to DoorDash and Uber, the good old days, right? But she was DoorDashing for extra money to buy a house, okay? And she ended up getting carjacked at gunpoint by an 11-year-old and an 18-year-old and having her car stolen and total after the criminals decided to go on a joyride and crash the vehicle. So I want to talk about this story because, once again, we have another story that involves young teenagers being agents of chaos, something that I don't think we've ever seen this much of in this country. Take a look.
A look at your screen. This is the condition of one woman's car after she said two people, including one child, stole it and crashed it on November 30th. The car, as you can see, is completely totaled. Welcome to 8 News at 6. We have a crime alert for you tonight about this very story because we are hearing from a DoorDash driver who says she was recently carjacked at gunpoint while finishing up a shift at a Richmond apartment complex. I'm Deanna Albritton.
I'm Eric Phillips, but there's more to this story. Police found the car crashed in Henrico. 8 News reporter Madison Moore is live in Richmond now with all the details. Madison, good evening.
Eric, Deanna, good evening. This actually all happened around midnight on November 30th, just 15 minutes before her shift ended. And now the driver tells me she actually started DoorDashing to help buy a house for her and her 10-year-old daughter. But since this incident happened, she's decided to put this job in the past.
I started thinking, what's going to happen to my daughter if something happens to me? What's going to happen?
It was just a normal Wednesday night for Dion Smith, but as she was finishing up her last DoorDash delivery at an apartment complex in Westover Hills in South Richmond, she says an 11-year-old and a teenager robbed her at gunpoint.
As I was walking towards delivering the food, I saw two persons heading back out to get in my car to go. That's when this younger one ran up to me. I thought he was asking for money, and come to the realization, he wasn't asking for money. He was telling me, give me your keys, give me your keys. I was telling him I didn't have any keys on me.
Smith left her car running and the keys were inside. She tells me she tried hard to defuse the situation.
I was like, where's your mom? Why are you outside doing this at this time of the night? And he said, don't worry about that. So I just kind of listened and follow what the Holy Spirit was telling me at the time. And just leave them, let them take the car.
Then the teen, who police identified as 18-year-old Jalea Henley of Goochland, yelled at her to get in the car, but Smith refused. And moments later, they drove off in her paid-off Honda HR-V. Police found the car crashed in a rural area of Henrico, totaled with the two inside. They were transported to a local hospital to be treated for non-life-threatening injuries, both charged with robbery. Now this leaves Smith without a car to drive her 10-year-old daughter to school and getting to her full-time job as a certified nurse assistant.
I'm really glad that they had hold on to them, because if they didn't get them, they probably could be out there being a menace to somebody else or something.
But in good news, some of her patient's family members actually started a campaign to help raise money for her to buy a new car, and they've almost met that goal. But for now, reporting live in Richmond, Madison Moore, 8 News.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. This story is insane for obvious reasons, okay? You have an 11-year-old along with an 18-year-old. I'm assuming that the 18-year-old put up the 11-year-old to carjack the woman at gunpoint. Now, I'm not going to make any guesses in regards to what these individuals may have looked like, okay? But I will say, because we don't know what they look like, I'm actually very frustrated. And I think that's part of the problem, right? I think part of the reason why we do have these criminals who are so emboldened to commit these acts of violence is because the mainstream liberal media goes out of their way to hide their identities if they happen to be a minor or if they happen to be the wrong skin color, right? If they're the wrong skin color, they're going to go out of their way to make sure that you don't know what they look like because, hey, you don't want to stereotype, right? We don't want to stereotype. But I think that's the problem. The problem is that when you have these minors committing these adult crimes, they should face adult consequences. In fact, I would go as far as to say that a minor who commits an act of violence like this involving a gun, armed robbery, murder, things like that, yeah, they should be tried as adults. They should be tried as adults. 100%. Not only that, but their parents at the very least should be put on television as well too, right? They should be exposed on television as well too. They should be embarrassed over the fact that their child committed this crime. That's exactly what should happen. Because again, what's happening is that we don't have enough shame in our society, right? We need to bring back shame. And we got to start shaming these parents who children go out here and commit these acts of violence. It doesn't make any sense because ultimately at the end of the day, it's their fault, right? There's no excuse for an 11-year-old or really even an 18-year-old really going out and committing an act of violence like this, a crime like this. Because if they was raised properly, this is not something that happens. It's because they weren't raised properly. They were raised in maybe a single parent household, a household that allows them to get access to weapons, things of that nature. Yeah, this is what happens. So I think parents should be held accountable. I'm so serious. There's too much of this in this country. You got a lady who was out DoorDashing for extra money to buy a house and then ends up having her paid off vehicle total. So then she has to go back out in this terrible used car market, thanks to Joe Biden, to try to buy another used car, another vehicle, which honestly, again, is probably going to cost more than the money that she received, if she received any money from her insurance company for the vehicle being totaled. Just an all-around terrible situation for this woman, and it's happening too much in our country, right? There are too many law-abiding citizens like this that are suffering because of bad parenting, and the parents aren't facing any consequences for what is happening in this country, which I'm not exaggerating with you guys. Like, we actually legitimately have a juvenile crime crisis in this country. Like, this is a documented thing, and it's not really much we can do about it because the public can't see the identities of the juveniles who actually are committing these crimes. Take a look.
And as the pressure mounts to fix the juvenile crime crisis, the U.S. Marshals Service says it's receiving more cases involving young people wanted by local police for violent crimes. Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell continues our live team coverage with a look at those investigations. Alexa?
Well, yes, Kai, in just 1 week, the U.S. Marshals Service says 3 fugitives have come across their desk, the majority wanted for multiple crimes, violent crimes, and all of them juveniles. 3 teens accused of committing separate and unrelated violent crimes have been added to the list of fugitives now wanted by the U.S. Marshals Service. A juvenile caseload, federal agents say, not the norm.
Most recently, we're seeing an extraordinary uptick in violent crime involving juveniles. As short as last week, we've had 3 fugitives come across our desk that are just the age of 17.
Because the fugitives are juveniles, the U.S. Marshals Service can't release their name or picture, an added hurdle for the federal agency that relies heavily on tips from the public when it comes to tracking down a wanted person.
What are these charges? What are they wanted for?
We're seeing a large uptick in carjackings and armed robberies. In one such case, an individual was wanted on 65 different charges.
That teen, wanted on 65 criminal counts, we'll refer to as Fugitive A. Investigators say this past summer, he went on a crime spree, stealing cars and robbing people. Some locations include Southeast Baltimore's Baltimore Highlands, Highlandtown, and Greektown communities. Fugitive B, back in August, is also accused of committing a string of street robberies, but in the city's Mount Vernon and Carroll communities. And Fugitive C is accused of taking part in a scheme involving 2 other juveniles. In this case, investigators say the teens robbed a man who had agreed to sell them shoes after connecting on the website OfferUp in East Baltimore. At the time, investigators say one of the juveniles was wearing an ankle monitor and under the supervision of the Department of Juvenile Services. 3 cases that agents say highlight the recent uptick in the U.S. Marshals Service involvement in tracking down juvenile fugitives. Another and high-profile case, the search for the Morgan State University mass shooters.
The Morgan State case showed us that violence knows no boundaries regardless of your age.
The age nor consequence not stopping the crime.
We want to work with our local partners to take these violent individuals off the street regardless of their age.
The federal agency says it's not just happening in Baltimore City. They're also seeing cases in neighboring jurisdictions. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Yeah, see, seen that, you heard that. Again, this is why I said that, there has to be a change in tactics, right? Like something has to give. If you're not going to put a picture of the criminals that commit the acts of violence, maybe, I don't know, put a picture of their parents, right? At least let the world know that, hey, these people raised a child that is growing up to be a criminal. I'm just saying, like, something has to be done. Okay, we cannot continue to allow our country and a lot of these cities to succumb to chaos from these violent teenagers. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And again, it's a lot harder to deal with the problem when you can't even rely on the public to help you because you can't reveal a picture of the suspect. Doesn't make sense. Again, it's almost like they're incentivizing the crime to happen. And these teenagers are smart enough. And this is why I say, like, again, they have the brains of adults, right? Because, again, this is something that adults do. But they know, oh, well, because I'm not 18 years old, that they're not going to put my picture out there, right? It's going to be a lot harder for them to actually catch me. And it does nothing but embolden, some of these criminals. And this is what happens. You have a problem that we have right now. So again, something has to change, man. You got to start punishing the parents or, actually putting out the images of the suspects. Something has to change because this is happening too much in our country. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like I tell you guys all the time, it comes down to parenting. We have a parenting crisis in this country and things are just getting worse and worse and worse, man. This is the result. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black Assertive Perspective. Peace.